Hi, it's Barbara and welcome back to another episode of Can I Recreate It in Elementor? A new series on this channel where I take a look at websites with interesting design elements and see if I can recreate them using the Elementor page builder. Today we're going to look at the website for MTG, an interior design firm based out of France. I really like this website and I think that there are a lot of videos that I can make on different elements of this site that could be done using the Elementor page builder. It's really well done and there's a lot of cool things going on. Today we're going to focus on this specific section of the home page. Now you might look at this and think, well, that seems pretty easy to recreate in Elementor. But I wanted to do a more beginner tutorial for this video because I realized that not everybody has the same level of experience, and I'm a pretty advanced Elementor user. I've been using it for many years and I have a design background, so I kind of know how things work. But if this is your first time using Elementor or your first website that you're building yourself, you might not know exactly how to do things. So I wanted to make a more beginners type tutorial for this video so that we can include those people as well, because everybody deserves to have a cool looking website. But I'd love to know what your experience level is. Are you a brand new Elementor user? Is this your first website? Or are you more advanced? Do you make websites for a living? Have you done this before? Let me know in a comment down below so I can figure out what type of videos you want me to make. And if you haven't done so already, please subscribe to the channel because we make new videos here every week and we'd love to have you. Alright, let's take a look and see if I can recreate it using Elementor. Let's take a look at this layout in more detail so we can see how to structure it in Elementor. It's a pretty basic two-column structure. We have a column on the left and then a column on the right. We also have underneath two columns here, so a column with this text and a column with this title. I think that this will be pretty easy to recreate. As far as the staggering is concerned, we just need to add some padding to this column in order to get that effect. I think that we'll be able to achieve this pretty easily. Let's take a look at the images. So when you hover over these images and hover out, they do this cool zooming effect. I don't think that the image widget has that built in Elementor, so we're going to have to come up with another solution for that. But I think I have a solution that will work for that. Let's take a look at what it looks like on mobile. So I'm going to open up our inspect tools and we're going to select mobile. And this is pretty much what I thought it would be. It just kind of stacks on top of each other. It is still the two-column layout underneath the image. We just need to reduce the size of this title text, but that's something that can easily be done. So I don't think that this layout is going to be too hard to achieve. Let me get out of the mobile tools and we'll go back to the desktop version. Now I'm sure that you're noticing this cursor and it's pretty cool, but personally, I don't really like these types of cursors. I think that they're not very user-friendly. I think people get kind of confused by them and they lag a lot. It's very laggy. This is being done using JavaScript, and I can put a link to how you add this to your website if you really want to have this custom cursor effect. But I don't really recommend doing this. I don't think it's really necessary. But if you really want to do it, I will put the link to that so you can learn more about it. It is a little bit more advanced in terms of development and the things that you have to do. And this is kind of a more beginner tutorial. So you might just want to do my solution, which is to add a custom cursor using CSS. And I'm going to get into how we can achieve kind of a similar look to what we have going on here, but that doesn't lag and is kind of built in to the browser tools. So we're going to go into that as well. But I think that this is a pretty simple layout to achieve, so let's get started. I've opened up a blank page in Elementor and I'm going to start adding some widgets to it. I'm going to hit my plus sign and select the two-column structure. Now I do want to change the width of this because if we go back to this page, it's definitely wider than what I currently have in Elementor. A really cool thing that you can do is check the width of any section using Chrome's inspect tools. So you just right click, hit inspect element and hover over wherever it is that you want to check, and it will tell you the dimensions of the container. So I can see that this is 1550 pixels wide. So I'm going to make my container that size. I'm just going to go back to my container. Under width, I'm just going to put in 1550 here. Now we can start adding our images and our text underneath, like our example. So I'm going to click the left side and I'll drag over an image. Now I did mention before that I'm not quite sure if we can get this same effect with the image widget, but let's see what we do have available. So I'm just going to upload one of these images that I've already added to my media library. Now I'm going to go over to style and I'm going to hit hover down here because this is where the hover tools are. Now we have some different hover animations available, but I don't think we have one that's quite like what we have in our example. So you can see that there's a bunch of things in here. Let's pick grow. So grow just makes the image grow, which is kind of similar to what we want. But if we go back to our example, you can see that it stays within this box. So that's not really going to work. And then some of these other ones, definitely I know are not going to work. You don't want it to shrink. We don't want it to pulse. This is what it does when it pulses. So I don't think that this is the best option, just looking at the descriptions of these different hover animations. So I actually think that we're going to have to try something different. So I'm going to get rid of this, just right click, hit delete, and let's go back to the drawing board. Let's play around with the call to action widget because I know that you can add images there and there are some hover animations available. I'm just going to type in call to action in my search bar to bring that up, drag that over, and you can see that we have some stuff going on here, but I think that this might work. If I choose an image in here, that same image, now we can see that it actually is doing very similar to what the example is doing. It's doing that zoom in effect. So I think that this might be the better option. Now under content, I can get rid of the heading, I can get rid of the text, and I can get rid of this button text. So now we're getting closer to our example. If I go to style, there's even more options available. Under image height, I can change that so it fits the dimensions of my image, which are 400 pixels high. I've already resized those and uploaded them to my media library so I know the height of the image, but if yours is different, you would just put in whatever the height is. But now we're getting closer. For hover effects, I don't necessarily want that darkening effect to happen because that's not what the example shows. So under hover effects, I'm going to go to hover and then change this overlay color just to be completely transparent. And you can see now there's no darkening happening. And there's also some really cool hover animations that we can choose from. So we have zoom in, zoom out, move left, move right, move up, and move down. So if we wanted to change the way that any of these worked, you can see that there's a couple different options available. I'm going to stick with zoom in because that looks pretty close to our example. I think I'm just going to speed it up a little bit, maybe do like 700 instead of what it was. And that makes it a little bit faster. So let's go back to our example. And yeah, I think that is a lot closer than what we would have gotten with the image widget. So now we just have to add our text underneath. So I'm going to actually add an intersection for this because we have 2 columns of text. So I'm going to drag over an intersection. That'll give me the 2 columns. And then I can add my text on the left and my title on the right. I'll drag over a text editor widget here. And then I'll go back to my widgets and I'm going to drag over a heading to this section. Now from here, I'm just going to copy and paste the text from the example so we can line everything up right and it looks pretty good. Obviously, if you're doing this, you would put in your own text. I went in and added my text. I had to double check that I spelled everything correctly. That's why copying and pasting is good. I am not a fluent French speaker, so I wanted to make sure that I spelled everything correctly. So I just copied and pasted. Now I need to style this. I figured out that the fonts on this site were Google fonts, so I can actually use them for this example. Sometimes when I do these projects, I don't actually have the fonts and I have to get something that's close, but for this example, these are Google fonts and those are built into Elementor. If you're ever wondering what font is being used, you can inspect the element and go to computed, and it will tell you everything about what has been computed on the page here. So this is using Barlow. It tells you the font size, the line height, everything about it. So I can go in and style that section up according to those settings. Now for this, I can do the same thing. And this one is using DM Serif Display, as you'll see right here. You can also see the font size, the letter spacing, the line height. All the CSS styles are being shown right under the computer tab. So pretty cool feature within Chrome's developer tools. So I can style this up and make it look pretty much like our example. I went and styled the text and it's looking pretty much like our example. Now what I have to do is copy all of this and paste it over into this section, and from there I'll change out the image and the text. So I'm just going to hit copy here, and then I'm going to click in the right column and hit paste. Now I'm just going to change out the image. So I'm going to hit choose image and select my other image that I've uploaded to my media library. I just got these images off of Pexels, a free stock photo site. Now I'm going to add an intersection, and then I'm going to copy and paste both of these into these different sections. We'll have to adjust a little bit to get it to fit on one line, and then I'm just going to go and change out our text to what we have in here. So let's go down and just copy both of these and paste it into our Elementor template. Now that we've changed out the text in the image, we need to add some padding to the top of this column to get that staggered look that we want. I'm going to open up the navigator to navigate to this column. If you're not familiar with the navigator, you can use this to navigate your page and make adjustments to those particular areas. So if I select a column, it will be adjusting settings for that whole column. If I select some things inside of it, you'll see how things highlight, and I will be adjusting those settings for that particular area. So it's a pretty cool way to navigate your page and make edits. You don't have to use this, but sometimes I like to because it can be a little bit tricky to get to certain sections. So I have my column selected. I'm going to go to advanced. I'm going to adjust my padding so that we can get that staggered effect. So I'm just going to hit 100. Now I don't want the padding to be around the entire area. Let me close out the navigator. I don't want that. I just want it to be at the top. So I have to unlink these values and bring these all to 0 except for the top section. So now you can see it is a bit more like our example. Let's go back to that and just check to see what we have going on. Let me actually remove our developer tools. So I think we need to add a little bit more padding to the top and maybe adjust our columns gap so that there's a little more space in between. So let's go back to Elementor. Let's add 160 pixels. I think that is a bit better. And let's go to our columns gap and change that to wide. And I think we're much closer to what we have in the example. Let's go back. Yes, I think that works pretty well. So now that we have this figured out on desktop, we have to worry, of course, about tablet and mobile devices. So let's open up our responsive tools and go to tablet. So on tablet, we need to make some adjustments. We're going to adjust our column so that it's 100%. And then we'll adjust this one as well. Let me click on that, go to layout and adjust that column. I want to also remove the padding at the top because on tablet and mobile, everything is stacked. So we don't need to have this big white gap in here. So we're going to go to advanced and we're going to make this 0. So what's really cool about Elementor is that you can adjust padding, margin, a lot of other things just for mobile devices. So that makes things a lot easier in terms of editing, because if you want things to look a certain way on tablet or mobile, but not on desktop, you have the ability to change that right within the editor. Let's make this 20 pixels. I think that looks a little bit better. This is actually exactly what we want. We want the 2-column layout, so I don't think we have to make any adjustments there. Now let's look at mobile and see what we have going on. So on mobile, I think we're going to need to adjust the image a bit, and then we're going to have to adjust this text size so that we can get it to fit in one line, and then adjust these columns so that we have them going side by side still. By default on mobile, everything stacks at 100%, so you have to sometimes adjust that. So let's go up to the top and adjust the height of this image. So we don't want it to be 400 pixels. I think like 260 is probably good. Now let's go adjust this column to be 50%. Actually, I think I'm going to make that about 30% because it is pretty small. We don't need to have it take up so much space. And then we'll make this 70. You always, of course, want to make everything add up to 100%. So this is 30, this is 70, it adds up to 100. Now we need to change the text size so that this fits all on one line. So it's much too big, but about 24 is good. I'm also going to adjust this because this looks a little weird with it having that much space at that size. And that's looking pretty good. Now what I can do is copy these settings and paste them below. So if we hit paste style, you can see it adjusted the height of the image on mobile. If I go here, hit copy and then paste on the column, it'll make that 30%. If I go and do the same thing for this column, copy the style, go to the column, hit paste style, you can see it adjusted that too. And I can go back here, copy the text settings and then paste those. Copy and paste is probably my favorite feature within the Elementor page builder because it just saves so much time. So I highly recommend using this feature because why do it manually if you can just copy and paste the settings from one widget to another. So that's looking pretty good. We have a nice mobile layout, we have a nice tablet layout, and on desktop, we're looking pretty good. The last thing that I want to do is change out the cursor to something more custom. Like I mentioned before, I'm not a huge fan of using the JavaScript codes because I do find that they lag a bit when you're trying to navigate the page, and I just don't really find them to be very user-friendly. But I do want to show you a cool way that you can customize your cursor using CSS. So I'm actually going to update this page. We can preview the changes so we can see what it looks like. I think it looks pretty good, but we do have that default cursor. To change the cursor, we're going to have to update our settings within WordPress. So we're actually going to get out of Elementor and add a couple lines of code to our WordPress customizer in the additional CSS field. If you're not familiar with where this is, you'll want to go to Appearance and then Customize from your WordPress dashboard, and it will take you to a screen that looks something like this. What shows up here will vary depending on what theme you're using, but there will be this area called Additional CSS, and that's where we're going to paste our code. This code is really only a couple of lines, and I will add it to the description so you can copy and paste this if you want to add it to your own site. For this to work, we will need to upload an image that we've created to our media library. This will be the image that we're going to use for our actual cursor. So I've already done this. I've uploaded this circle image to the media library, and I'm just going to copy this to my clipboard because I'm going to need to paste it into my CSS code over here where it says path-to-image.png. You do want to make sure that you're uploading a transparent PNG in order for this to work right. So now you can see in the preview that our cursor looks like this. While this isn't exactly like what we have in our example site, I think that it is pretty cool. It does give a custom effect, and it is a lot easier to do than adding the JavaScript. So if you're not as advanced of a developer, you're not really sure what to do, this could be a good option if you're looking for some customization. But I will leave more information down below in the description so you can read up on how to do it using the technique that was used on the MTG site, so you can get it to look exactly like it looks here if you are interested. We've added our cool custom cursor and we finished our layout. Let's take a look at the final product. Well friends, that is it for today's video. I hope that you learned something and found it helpful. If you did, give it a thumbs up and share it with a friend who might be building their own website. Thanks so much for watching, and we'll see you next time.